rzeczywistości jesteście bardziej przystojni. A na blisko.
Okay, sorry everyone, running a bit late. As you can see, there's quite a lot of guests and quite a lot of preparations. So, good afternoon everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Mycielski. I'm the Vice President of the Open Dialogue Foundation. We are a human rights, democracy and rule of law watchdog. Since 2015, we're specialized in the defense of the rule of law in Poland. Most notably, we defend the independent judiciary and the Public Prosecutor prosecution service. As part of our advocacy and research work, we publish every year a report. It's the only report of its kind. The report lists victims of the state prosecution service in Poland in cases which we believe to be politicized. It also lists investigations which were deemed as inconvenient to the ruling party and were swept under the rug. As part of the publication of this report, today we've organized this event to hear some of the victims and also some experts. So before I give the floor to my colleague Bartosz, who will tell you more about our work and about the report itself, let me introduce our very special panel of guests. So first of all, we have someone who needs no introduction, the father of the free market economy in Poland, the former Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, and currently Chairman of the Council of the Civil Development Forum, Professor Leszek Balcerowicz. Then next to him we have Dr. Jakub Karnowski, the former chair of Polish State Railways, currently a lecturer at the Warsaw School of Economics. Next we have Mr. Przemysław Krych, entrepreneur, investor, philanthropist, founder of Cornerstone Investment Management and Griffin Real Estate. Mr. Piotr Osiecki, entrepreneur, founder and CEO of Altus TFI, accompanied by attorney Katarzyna Szwarc. And last but not least, my good colleague Bartosz Kramek, the chair of the supervisory board of our foundation. So please, Bartosz, I give the floor to you.
Thank you, Martin. Dear speakers and friends, dear guests. Polish Public Prosecutor's Office selected cases of malicious prosecution and dereliction of duties since 2015 by the Open Dialogue Foundation and the Association of Judges, TEMIS, is the title of the report we have the pleasure to present today. Well, pleasure might not exactly be the right word, given the nature of the stories covered by the study and dramatic experiences of our protagonists. Corruption, bribery, extortion, political rivalry, politicized prosecution service, abuse of power, abuse of special services, malicious prosecution, fabrication of evidence, arbitrary detention, negligent court control, threats, persecution of opposition, victim blaming, dereliction of duties are the main phenomena representative of the persecution of entrepreneurs. These are the key words and common denominators one would come across while attempting to describe the system of targeting inconvenient business people and their assets in Poland, in today's Poland. Our work in this field started 3 years ago when in August 2021 we published the first report on the abuse of the prosecution service. Initially, we have collected a few cases related to the phenomenon, and so far the list has grown to over 70 of them. not only business figures, but persecuted activists, including myself and Martin, opposition politicians, independent judges, disobedient prosecutors, and even rappers and writers, and random victims like the driver having a car accident with the former Prime Minister. And we know it is just the tip of the iceberg. Collecting and processing the available information is an enormous effort. That is why I would therefore like to take this opportunity to thank my colleagues involved in this work, led by Martin and Jakub Karnowski of Akcja Demokracja. And it all would not have been possible without our partner, the TEMIS, Association of Judges, the judges Leszek Mazur and Dominik Czeszkiewicz, and last but not least, the prosecutor Ewa Wrzosek. The business people are usually rather an overlooked group among the many persecuted in our country since 2015. Since 2 years, we have aimed to close the disinformation gap and make our European and international friends more aware of their situation. The people present today are the most prominent and drastic cases of legal harassment employed against entrepreneurs. We have learned they are of particular concern for Warsaw-based diplomats in the context of business and investment climate, of threats to foreign investment. And this is also the reason why Professor Leszek Balcerowicz, the legendary architect of the Polish economic transformation, a vehement champion for entrepreneurship and the rule of law, is today with us. Lastly, I would also like to mention the other consequences of political investigations, as prosecution goes hand in hand with the government's propaganda. Charges are used to destroy one's reputation. I'm confident it will be covered more in depth by our distinguished speakers. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you. Martin, the floor is again yours.
Thank you, Bartosz. I managed to catch my breath in the meantime. First of all, of course, please, Professor Leszek Balcerowicz, the vehement champion, as Bartek said, of the defense of the rule of law in Poland. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be in the company of such brave and honest men, two of whom happen to be my former students, Jakub on the right and Piotr on the left. I was dealing more myself with the prosecution than prosecution has been dealing with myself, even though they tried some false accusations. My main academic and political interests were on something which is the most important for the quality of life. And this is institutional systems. And you realize how important it is when you compare South and North Korea. The one is backward, lots of poverty and lot of fear. This is North Korea. And South Korea is highly developed. It's free, and it's not ruled by fear. So dealing with the institutional system and their changes, I think, is extremely important. And I said this was my main interest, both in research and in practice. As this indication suggested, the primary, classical, and the most important distinction is between socialism and capitalism. Now, I know that socialist has two meanings, and this is me confusing. Some people think socialism is a large social spending. On that definition, United States is socialism. All of Europe is socialist, Western Europe, because social spending to GDP exceeds 30%. I am not criticizing this at the moment. I am just pointing out to the consequences of bad definitions. So stick to the classical distinction, whereby socialism is based on the monopoly or dominance of state ownership. And capitalism, by definition, is based on private ownership. Now, on that definition, there never was and never will be good socialism. Remember the power of the word never, because all the socialists we know, and we know why, There are dictatorships based on propaganda, on lies, and they are backwards because private property rights are indispensable, even though not sufficient condition for democracy and rule of law. So if you love democracy, then you have to love capitalism. It's a little provocation, but it's an indispensable condition for democracy and political freedoms. As I said, socialism in a classical meaning as a system based on dominance of state ownership is always backward, is always dictatorship, is always based on false propaganda. Don't be misled or confused by the nice emotions related to this word. Having said that, of course, I point out that there are different kinds of capitalism, but the word capitalism is better than typical socialism. Almost, because at least, and you have a huge differentiation, first regarding economic growth, and it crucially depends on the extent of private ownership, which is the essential element of economic freedom. No private ownership, no development, and no democracy. There is no single example of a country dominated by state ownership which would be democratic and not dictatorial. It is no accident that Lukashenko's Belarus is dictatorship. And from this point of view, nationalization, which is going on in Poland under the present regime, is not only threatening economic growth, it's threatening democracy. And you realize this when you see how many posts are filled by political nominations. You cannot nominate people to the private firms, but you can nominate them to the state firms. So defending, once again, private ownership is not only defending economic growth, it's defending political and civil freedoms. This is indispensable condition. Now, very few words about Poland. In 1989, you can't remember, most of you, we inherited a catastrophe. Hyperinflation, 20-30% a month. In the late month of 89, bankrupt country vis-à-vis the West, and collapse of the economy, but we managed to make a radical break with the past. And this more or less was continued. I am coming to the last years. But what should be surprising in a positive way? When we make a break in Poland with the former regime, and the same goes for Hungary until recently, or former Czechoslovakia, we could introduce rule of law, democracy, but we could not introduce fully fledged capitalism. Why? Because it was impossible to privatize state-dominated economy. So it required privatization of state-owned enterprises, and all the successive regimes or parties, including those who were called post-communist, continued privatization. Imagine what would have happened if they did not do that. Poland would be another Belarus, because there is no single case of a democratic rule of law country dominated by state ownership. And we know why. When we look at the present regime, you nominate people, you use the mechanism of nomenclatura, you dominate not only the economy, you dominate all other spheres of social life. So we were lucky to make this break and to continue this until recently. And let me say a few words about what has been happening in Poland during the last 8 years, not because I want to frighten you, but to mobilize those who are living in these countries and are going to vote. There has been a great reversal on everything Poland has introduced, not in economic life, because it takes several years between going back and the results. We are now paying the price. High inflation, recession, etc. But justice system, and this comes to prosecution. Prosecution is a litmus test of what kind of regime a country has. And prosecutions during the last 8 years has been going into the reverse towards dictatorship. Because prosecution, which is controlled by people who want to control the society, is a tool of intimidation and lies. And we have to reverse it. There has been an attack on free media freedom, and so-called public media has been used as a tool of party propaganda. I think this is an argument for their privatization. So, because state media are a temptation for the politician to use them for party propaganda. So privatization. We have been going back on economic system, nationalization. Now in Poland we have the highest percentage of state ownership after Belarus in Europe. And the moral level of politics and the public debate has been drastically lowered. It is because of party propaganda, which is full of falsehoods and lies. And this is a challenge for us in Poland to reverse it. And I am hoping, deeply convinced, that coming elections will manage to do that. I was set 7 minutes, it's okay? Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. So maybe let's go in the order we have on our leaflet. So let me now give the floor to Mr. Przemysław Krych. And just before you start, let me just remind you that actually on your chairs you will have also a mini report on this specific things. Kramek, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marcin. My name is Przemysław Krych. I'm a founder of Cornerstone Investment Management and Griffin Real Estate, respectively leading corporate private equity and real estate private equity investment management businesses in Poland and beyond. On the cover page of this publication, you will find Punishing Philanthropy in Poland. And the story is really about probably the first ever person in Poland who goes to detention for 6 months for being a philanthropist. I always thought when you're successful in your life, you should share your success with others. And I supported a number of initiatives. Most recently, I've been supporting Media Liberation Fund in starting the first ever independent Ukrainian publication for women called Sestry. Why independent? Because every other Ukrainian media is either dependent of the government or the oligarchs. I am also the main sponsor of the investigative journalism program of Fundacja Gazeta Wyborcza, and I've been supporting a number of other foundations. Just to mention Jan Karski Educational Foundation, the Foundation for Disabled People, which is relevant for the rest of the story. And we'll not continue with the rest, but let's stop here. So my story begins on 27 October 2017, when one Krzysztof Porowski walks into my office, tells me he represents someone he identifies as a former public prosecutor from Katowice, former deputy head of Agency for Internal Security, and the current deputy of Central Anti-Corruption Office. There is only one person which meets all the criteria, and it's very easy to find out who that person is. Up until today, none of the prosecutor's office ever raised interest in identifying this person, and in spite of the fact that I've been very vocal and talking to the media about it, and I understand that the Polish state has all the tools and means in order to identify who that person is. Krzysztof Porowski tells me, you pay me 1.5 million euros or you're going to have problems. The problems are with the special services. They are after you. I rejected to pay because I never pay. I think you start paying once, you're going to be paying for the rest of your life. That's number one. That's a rule I try to obey. And second, I had no reason to fear anything. I run a legitimate business. My business is with international capital, mostly American capital, institutional capital. And, I obey all the rules, including FCPA, Foreign Corruption Practices Act regulations, which I have to subscribe to every time I sign up for any of the international capital to back any of my ventures. So therefore, I tell him it has to be a mistake. Thank you very much. I am not going to continue this discussion. 2 months later, I find myself in a custody of the government, and I've been charged by the same public prosecutor's office from Katowice, Porowski, has been referring to in his speech to me. And I've been charged with the alleged bribery of, in the form of a donation to Foundation for Disabled People in Struże, which was run by late Senator Przemysław Krych. The bribery was allegedly given, in the form of, again, of a donation to the foundation, and allegedly for Mr. Kogut to basically interfere with the conservation architect of Kraków for one of the properties in Kraków not to be put in the monument registry. Let me comment here. I've been supporting this foundation for disabled people for about 10 years. I've been giving donations over these 10 years, and donations given before and after this one were all fine. This one was not fine. They've been money flowing into the foundation after this event, before this event, and regardless of the fact that nothing like any interference of Senator Kogut ever happened with the conservation architect, he even openly in one of the interviews said that no one ever came to him to discuss this matter. So another important element of all of this is that I bought the property in question, the real estate in question, which was a former hotel Cracovia in Kraków, was part of the portfolio of a company called Echo Investment, which I bought with capital coming from PIMCO, Pacific Investment Management Company, and OT Capital Management, two reputable American institutional investors. And at the time when we were doing due diligence of Echo, it was below materiality rate. So it was too small for us really to bother understanding this asset, understanding all the economics of the assets. It wasn't making money. So I gave a bribe for a project which wasn't making money, which was below materiality rate. It didn't matter financially to me whether it will make money, it will not make money. And on top of that, I bought it with the international capital, and with this international capital, obeying FCPA regulation, I've signed a contract under which if I was going to break the regulations, coming from this FCPA rules, I will lose 50% of my own capital, which I put alongside any institutional money which I invest into any of the projects. So I was going to be stupid enough to give a bribe for a project which was making money, which was below materiality rate, which was bought with institutional capital from the US, complying with FCPA regulations and risking 50% of my own capital. Not only not making money on top of that, but losing 50% of what I was going to invest into Echo Investment. So all of that, and again, the foundation, the bribe was going to happen according to the prosecutor's office in the form of a donation to the foundation, which was for a specific project. In this case, it was to build the center for autistic kids, and it was actually spent the way it was meant to be spent. Basically, it was spent to build this center for autistic kids. We checked on that, we verified that. And after that, there were other donations given, which are, again, according to prosecutor's office, and they do not represent bribes. So I find myself in custody of the government, in detention in Sosnowiec jail. And it wasn't that I was left alone. I've been bullied from day one by my inmates. Well, they were pretending just to be inmates because it was very easy to identify they are not actually, inmates, but they were wearing, different clothes than the inmates are allowed to wear. And they've been bullied from day one to tell them something about the presidents, the mayors of the major cities of Poland. And I've been approached by them either, at the place where you normally go for a 1 hour allowed walk a day, or, I've been walked by the someone who was pretending to be a guard, but he wasn't, and telling me this, Mr. Krych, we want to know, about the mayors of the Polish cities. It was just before, local government elections. We want to know about late Mr. Adamowicz, who was still alive at the time. Other mayors of the major cities, Mr. Jaśkowiak, Ms. Gronkiewicz, and others. You tell us what you know. If you didn't give bribes, you are a small community, you know who did. And if you tell us, we're going to set you free. So this happened. I spent 6 months in detention. I've been released in June 2018. And since that time, the case is still not closed. This case is still in the air. It's been, flying around between the courts, and one court he's been sent to the court in Nowy Sącz, then sent to Katowice, then sent to Kraków. Courts are still deciding between themselves who's going to be dealing with that. No one is brave enough to start the case. And I will stop here and let other to add to that story. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kramek. So now a different story. I'm not sure which one is actually more shocking. Please, Piotr.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Piotr Osiecki. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm still the majority shareholder of the largest independent TFI, so asset management business, not only in Poland but in Central Eastern Europe. I created Altus TFI, which was asset management company managing almost 18 billion zlotys. This was the level of assets under management. Privately owned, started from the scratch as a greenfield project. Started in the year 2009, and we grew it up to the level of 18 billion zlotys under management in the year 2018. Stock exchange listed company with market value roughly 1 billion zlotys. But as you can imagine, in Poland you cannot be successful entrepreneur. In Poland, you should know it's better for you not to own a company within financial industry, as it is heavily dependent, and the ownership, as Professor Balcerowicz said, it's in the state of the hands. And if you sort of tackle and get into the field of the state-owned companies within financial industry, you will have problems. And I'm an example of this. I have been arrested in the year 2018, 31st August 2018, I was arrested with the charges that I still do not understand how one can be faced with such charges. Namely, I have been charged that acting in the best interest of my clients and my funds, I allegedly sold shares of one of the companies within the portfolio of my funds at too high price. This is the charge that I have, that doing my business, doing what I'm paid for and what I'm responsible for vis-a-vis my clients. The Altus TFI and its group had roughly 60,000 clients, individual clients. So I have been charged and arrested for, again, allegedly selling the shares of one small company that accounted for 1.2% of our portfolio. So a very tiny part of Altus TFI assets under management at too high price. Allegedly causing damage to the buyer, professional buyer that did thorough due diligence done by legal firm Greenberg Traurig, by the financial auditor KPMG. State-of-art transaction process fully described in the IPO of the buyer, in the prospectus approved by SEC. Basically, as I said, state-of-art process, a transaction process. So I have been charged for this and arrested for 3 months by the so-called delegated judge. I will get back to this later on to tell you I am sort of mad and furious about prosecutor's office, but the more, and I think that this is something terrible within Polish so-called judiciary system, because it has nothing to do with the rule of law. Is what the judges are doing, especially delegated judges and the courts in Poland. They do not completely understand the business, and moreover, the individuals are delegated, and they are basically the whole system is heavily politicized. So I was arrested for 3 months. I spent 3 months in prison. I was released after the 3 months for the record bail. Again, a historic event within Polish judiciary system. 108 million Polish zlotys, roughly 25 million US dollars, where 36 investment professionals and both private and corporate bailed for me. So it was not a demand of the court. It was just sort of motion of people, and they wanted, so many people wanted to bail for me, as they knew me from my professional life. So there was a bail of 108 million zlotys, but it was not enough to release me again from temporary custody, which in Poland, in Polish situations, temporary custody. The word temporary I sort of underline because altogether I spent 16 months in prison, in temporary custody. The word temporary is a joke. Yeah. In the developed countries, for example, in Germany, if you if you are arrested for more than 6 months, you are immediately released if there is no, if you are not indicted, if the case is not going to court. Yeah, it's been 5 years. There is no other. I'm still only charged. The suspected. Nothing is happening. And I think by now, thanks God, the prosecutors already know that they were misled, manipulated, and so on. But sort of, I will be referring to the courts, and again, judiciary system and rule of law in Poland, which is practically, in the case of our cases, non-existent. So I was there was this bail. I was released for 2 months. I spent 2 months at home, sort of doing nothing, not escaping, no manipulation, nothing. And I was again arrested for another 3 months at the same charges. No new charges, no new evidence, basically nothing new in my case. So I spent, but this was like Supreme Court of Appeal that arrested me again on the motion of the prosecutors, and I spent additional 3 months in prison, temporary custody, which is much worse than prison, actually. And I was released again by regular judge. Spent again 2 months at home. Again, no charges, nothing new in my case. And I was for the third time arrested for the same thing. This time altogether for 10 months. Already I spent 16 months in prison, being arrested 3 times in the period of 2 years. I've never had any problem with law. I was law-abiding citizen. I'm US CFA Chartered Financial Analyst. I graduated from London School of Economics, Warsaw School of Economics. I had never had any problem with law. I've been in a number of committees. The crime that I committed is that I actually had a very successful company within financial industry. Obviously, 2 weeks after a similar case to what Przemek said, 2 weeks after I was initially arrested, my partners and my family were approached with the indecent proposal, if you will, that if I'm persuaded to sell the shares of my company, Altus TFI, at 1 zloty per share, I will be released immediately. So like Eastern style type of extortion, which obviously I refused, and the proposal came from one of state-owned financial industries. The things I'm saying we have all documented with my legal advisors, and I'm very sure the time will come where we will present it in details. But sort of, I promised myself that I will devote my life to give light to this case, because it cannot be like this in the center of Europe and in the country that is within European Union. My case is a case of a successful entrepreneur that got in the way of the power of the state-owned companies, and it was kind of a way to make an extortion and take over my business. Then obviously I suffered additional problems, like they revoked the license of my company, which we very much hope we will regain and get back, and basically I want to carry on my business. But the whole story, and the story probably of us all, shows the thing that we hear and listen a lot, that the free media are under attack and they have problems because they are free and independent. We hear that the independent judges and prosecutors are under attack. We hear that there are a number of NGOs, activists, and basically activists within free country, free democracy, are under attack. But we are also cases, and I think this should be pointed out, that also entrepreneurs and private business people are those that are especially the target for the government, for the country, for the people basically that hold the power. They simply don't like us. Yeah. And one of the ways is to try to take over business and make an extortion. Just to end my story, I could probably talk hours, but just to give you a flavor, as I told you, I'm CFA charter holder, so this is very much a professional and independent organization that deals with it's very much focused on the professionalism and the ethics of its members, and there is a special committee to investigate and make sure that there is special professional conduct of doing business. So I presented them with the whole case, and obviously it came back with the ruling that no disciplinary action against me, which should basically clear and solve my case. But in Poland, if the case is started in any economical that has any economical background, it lasts for years, basically. Yeah. But hopefully, thanks to also such meetings, we can give light and make world aware of the facts and problems that are happening, and hopefully very soon the climate will change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Piotr, for this truly terrifying story. Now we understand why we hope so much that the government changes in a week. Before I give the floor to Jakub, I just wanted to also mention, because I forgot before, that Jakub Karnowski is also a board member of the Economic Freedom Foundation, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Economic Freedom Foundation for co-sponsoring the publication of this report. So, Jakub, as you've seen, this report includes a section called Entrepreneurs and Executives. So we had the entrepreneurs, so now a former state executive, please.
Thank you, Martin. Good afternoon, everyone. My major job for the last 27 years is teaching at Warsaw School of Economics. I'm together in the chair of International Comparative Studies with Professor Leszek, Balcerowicz, who is on my left, and I'm very proud of it. I'm mentioning that because I believe it's also a common denominator between me and Piotr Osiecki, because we are students of Professor, and then when Piotr decided to set up the investment fund, I stayed at the university. But we are speaking. I will speak here about the time when, in 2012, 2015, I was the CEO of Polish State Railways, which was at the beginning of my tenure there, very kind of neglected part of Polish economy. I'm speaking about railways, and I decided to be serious about the reforms at PKP, Polish State Railways, including privatization. And privatization is not something which the current governing party, Law and Justice in Poland, likes. So they do not like privatization. Privatization was not liked by also Mr. Andrzej Adamczyk, who has been Minister of Infrastructure in Poland since 2015, and who is a peace oligarch from Kraków region. He's in very close personal contact with the President of Poland, who is from Kraków, Mr. Zbigniew Ziobro, the Minister of Justice, who is from Małopolska, Kraków region as well, and with Beata Szydło, who has been Polish Prime Minister, the first one before Morawiecki. I'm here representing 12 other people, who 5 of them from the board member, management board of PKP Cargo, who was a subsidiary company to PKP, the company I was the CEO, 2012-2015, and but I am representing the board of PKP Cargo and the supervisory board. At the time I was head of CEO of PKP SA, the umbrella company. I was also the chairman of supervisory board of PKP Cargo. And the charges which were brought to me in February 2019 to me, against me and 12 of my colleagues were about PKP Cargo. It was not related to PKP SA, especially not to the privatization, which were very transparent with white paper published after each privatization. And but it has nothing to do with that. When Law and Justice took the government, took over the government in late 2015, Mr. Adamczyk became the Minister of Infrastructure, and he said publicly a few times that there were a lot of mismanagement, corruption issues related to PKP. He said this because there was something, of course, people who supported Law and Justice, including the head of Law and Justice, Mr. Jarosław Kaczyński, wanted to hear. So when he took over, he decided to do a lot of, I understand, research and try to find something against me and against my colleagues. Adamczyk said publicly in May 2016, so more or less half a year after they took over, that there is a major corruption scandal related to the takeover of the Czech cargo railway cargo company AWT, because the management of PKP Cargo bought the Czech cargo provider in the year 2015. So Adamczyk announced in the parliament, that was, by the way, the special session related to the mismanagement, corruption, and this kind of things did under the previous government. So he said it publicly, and he said this is something for the secret service to look at. 3 years have passed. In the meantime, the CEO of PKP Cargo asked the professor, one professor from the provincial university, to write a valuation of PKP Cargo at the time of AWT. At the time, PKP Cargo purchased AWT. When PKP Cargo in 2015 decided to buy a Czech company, they hired EY, Whale Gottschall Menges, the American legal company, and brokerage of PKO Bank Polski, the major state-owned commercial bank in Poland, and they worked 9 months to come up with the valuation of the AWT company, and the company was purchased in line with these valuations. In 2016, then the Law and Justice nominated CEO of PKP Cargo decided to hire this, without any procedure, this professor from the provincial university, and the guy came up with 6 pages of paper, and according to him, the price paid for AWT was 250 million Polish zlotys, which is around 50-60 million euros, too high than, according to this professor, should be. So basically, that was 2016. 2019, a few months before the election in 2019, Ziobro decided to arrest 5 guys of which were the board members, management board members of PKP Cargo in 2015, and bring charges against the rest, including me, I mean the members of the supervisory board. Since I was not arrested, probably because of the pure luck, because I was at the time they probably wanted to arrest me. I was in Italy, outside of Poland, and they called me, asked me a few not very wise questions, and I realized that something is going on. And then I saw my colleagues, you know, in the without eyes, with a belt, black belt on the eyes, and I noticed that my colleagues were arrested. The court decided to release my colleagues 48 hours after the arrest, which is very rare event in Poland. Just around 7 to 8% of the cases in Poland, after the prosecutor's decision to arrest, these guys are released. So basically, I came back to Poland. My colleagues were already released, and it was, I believe, thanks to Professor Balcerowicz, and who decided to take part in the press conference at the time. And since I was in Italy, I was free to recall or even to find out what was the details about the transaction, because I was not involved in the transaction, because transaction was made by my colleagues who were at the management board. My job as a chair of supervisory board was to make a final decision based on the materials provided by the advisory companies, by EY, PKO Bank Polski, and Whale Gottschall Menges. Basically, they were released. It was 2019. So 4 years have passed without any decision, anything from the prosecutor's office. Early 2023, again the election year, and the prosecutor decided, I mean, he actually asked for the proper evaluation, because the professor from the provincial university was not someone who was specializing in valuation. He was not. It was evaluated for the company, not for the prosecutors. So now the prosecutors appointed the new evaluators, and these guys, after 2 years, decided that actually the price for AWT paid by PKP Cargo was okay. Nothing happened. And again, February 2023, I was invited again to the prosecutor's office together with my colleagues, but we are invited like one person each month. So, you know, it takes more or less a year to provide the charges, to come up with the charges to the 13 people. And what happened in February 2023? I was informed that, you know, these old charges from 2019 are no longer valid. the prosecutor doesn't use the word cancelled or something like that. Basically, they change the charges. Now I'm charged that the company, during the process of buying AWT, the transaction was overinsured. So basically, the management paid too much for the insurance of the transaction. Why? Where are the benchmarks? No one knows. I mean, the prosecutor doesn't care. And second charge, it comes like more or less like this. I did not order the employees of PKP Cargo under my supervision. I was the chairman of supervisory board. I was not in a position to order anyone from the company to do anything because I was at the supervisory board. But prosecutor doesn't care. I don't think he even understands the corporate governance of major companies. He doesn't care. It was mid-February 2023. Nothing have happened since then. Nothing. Zero. It's still at the stage of prosecutor's office. It didn't go to the court. Now, I was the CEO of PKP, which employed 70,000 people. Adamczyk, the current Minister of Infrastructure for the last 8 years, he said publicly a few times that there was a lot of corruption. My charges are not about corruption. It has nothing to do with corruption. No one accuses anyone or bring charges against anyone related to the corruption. This is about, Article 296. It's about I don't even know how to translate it. It's about mismanagement, something like that. But I don't know anyone who was in PKP at the time I was the CEO of PKP. So since 2012, 2015, no one at the management board, no one even the ordinary employer of the company, employees of the company, who ended up in the court. No even one accusation in the court related to the times I was there. But when I look at my successors, the CEOs of PKP who came after me, the first one turned out to be the former cooperator of the communist secret service, and he was the CEO for three days only because Kaczynski realized he was communist collaborator. The next one was arrested by the anti-corruption agency, Law and Justice Anti-Corruption Agency, after a year and a half because of the corruption related with so-called with the event organized by PiS in 2016 in Warsaw. The next one, who is still the CEO of PKP, was he had an issue in the court, and he was sentenced with in the private court related to the saying lies about the trade unions. He basically, using the vulgar words, said something about the trade unions, and the trade union member went with the court, and he was sentenced with the court. The current CEO of PKP Cargo was sentenced in the court in March this year in the issue related to the corruption. And he's still the CEO of, and because he's the former member of the parliament of the Law and Justice Party. And this is something which I believe it's an excellent summary of what's happening now in the state-owned enterprises in Poland. Thank you.
Welcome to Poland under a Law and Justice government. So we only have a few more minutes, but from what I believe, there's no event after this one. So let me just take a couple of more minutes. So I really wanted to give the floor to the audience. So I wanted to ask if there are any questions for our speakers.
Overwhelmed.
Anyone? No? Oh, yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Grigory. I work for Transparency International Russia. And of course, everything sounds so familiar to me.
That's very welcome
home.
The
question is that, as I understood, all the businessmen are put in custody because of a non-violent crime, And so my question is it a normal thing in the judicial practice in Poland to put people in custody for non-violent crimes? And is there a difference between the financial crimes which are politically motivated and not politically motivated? Because in Russia, for example, the investigator usually can put a businessman into custody and then demand a bribe to get the businessman out of the jail. So I wonder, is it a normal thing to put people in custody on financial crimes, or is it just a political? You can detect a political motivated case.
Who would like to?
Actually, we have here in our room Jacek Socha. Thank you, Jacek, for coming. Jacek is a former SEC, Polish Securities and Exchange Commission chairman, and former Minister of Treasury, a very reputable person that deals for the past 12 months with the so-called temporary custodies issues in Poland. There was always a problem. I guess this is, Professor Balcerowicz could elaborate on that, but I guess within most of the post-Soviet countries, Eastern Bloc, there is a problem. It's like a social problem, and I believe there are still bad emotions toward capitalism, and usually private entrepreneurs and successful business people are perceived as wrongdoers or thieves. Yeah. So there's always been a problem in Poland of extremely high rate of temporary custodies, the arrest for the business people, as the courts and judges do not understand at all business and economy. This increased substantially for past 8 years. Roughly today, the number of people that are in temporary custody increased by 100% vis-a-vis what was in previous years, and prosecutors' percentage of approval by the courts of prosecutors' motions to put someone in temporary custody is almost 97%. There is hardly any so successful organization in Poland as the prosecutor office. They are super successful, as 97% of the motions to put someone in prison is accepted by the court. And yes, in past 8 years, the number of entrepreneurs and business people increased tremendously vis-a-vis to what was before. There was always a problem, but now it's like Mount Everest of vis-a-vis what was before. Yeah. And the number of people that are arrested for more than 3, 6, and even 12 months, again, I'm coming back, underline this word temporary. This is no longer temporary custody. If you are arrested, it's like you are already serving the term in prison. So it's very much like you said in Russia and other countries, and this is, I guess, the still reflection of this so-called Homo Sovieticus. Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else wants to add something to this question from the speakers? Oh, yes, please, Bartosz. Sorry. Yeah. Thank
you. My name is Krzysztof Oczech. I'm a journalist from Press, and I'd like to ask Mr. Osiecki, because you said that your shares, they offered you 1 zloty per share, as far as I remember. So what was the price of the share?
At the time I was arrested, the price was 9 zlotys per share, 9-10 zlotys per share. The offer was quite accurate, but it was roughly basically the offer indecent proposal that I should give up my ownership within Altus, basically give it for free. Yeah.
Okay, and second question, because I didn't understand why did they put you in the custody the second and third time? What was the reason they did it? They had some kind of reason.
No. Yeah, I mean the answer is no. There was no reason. I was not escaping. I was not leaving Poland. I was not talking to anyone. Basically, the state so desperately wanted me in prison. It was like the case was obviously heavily politicized, and they wanted to have a scapegoat that's gonna pay the price and answer for the Getback scandal, because this was within the problems of the company Getback that went bankrupt, and they made me scapegoat to cover up for the bankruptcy of the company that I had nothing to do with, and I was not responsible for this.
And I can only add that the prosecutor were crying when he has been released. So
Crying.
Crying.
Crying?
Yes, she was crying at the court. Yes.
The thing is, like, to give you the flavor how it works. The last time, after this 16 months, the last time I was arrested and spent 10 months in prison, it was the COVID broke out, and my lawyers went to the court to discuss if there is another extension for another 3 months for me to stay in the prison, in the temporary custody, and the judge said there is no need to discuss this case extensively because there is COVID. A lot of cases dropped out of the vacanda, and the court this time had 2 weeks and access to the computer to read the files of my case, and the judge had time 2 weeks to read my case, and after this careful thorough consideration and access to the computer in the court, the judge learned that yes, there is no need for me to stay in the prison any longer. Yeah, because the COVID broke out, and finally the court had 2 week access to the computer within the court. Yeah.
And last question, if I may, was there any organization international that reacted on your case or not? Thank you.
Almost all organizations. Fundacja Helsińska, Court Watch, who else? Lewiatan, Polska Rada Biznesu, Polish Business Roundtable, everyone, number of motions, bails, people sort of supporting me, sending letters, even priests that know me and my family. Nothing helped. Yeah.
And you forgot to mention the ombudsman.
Sorry?
The ombudsman. The commissioner for
of course. Yeah.
And an organizational remark. I just been told that we have been granted like 20 more minutes. So I don't know if we have so many questions or comments, but if you have, the floor is yours. Not really.
Please. I just want to make a comment as an employee of Transparency International, so it's why I visited this session, because it's a surprise for me, because in Corruption Perceptions Index, in World Justice Project, in Freedom House Index, Poland is quite good at indices of corruption. And I just read a Freedom House report, they don't mention anything about business persecution and so on. So I think it's a really weird situation when Poland, for example, is much higher in this index than Hungary, and that's a weird thing that international NGOs don't consider that narrative. So maybe that's a point of advocacy you may focus on.
That's why we published this report.
Can I comment on that?
Yes, sure.
No, the irony is that Law and Justice is a party which the first time won the elections in 2005 and then in 2015 as the party who is combating corruption. And they basically what they did, they captured the issue of corruption. They are pretending they are fighting corruption, but by capturing also the state-owned enterprises, they are injecting corruption into that. And we have the newest example of the corruption scandal when the Polish officials in embassies in India and in African countries were selling Schengen visas for bribes, and it was possible to obtain the Polish issued Schengen visa in the almost vegetable stand next to the Polish consulates and embassies all across Africa and in India. So And they have a habit, actually, that's of course premeditated policy. They do not comment on that. They don't even agree. I mean, they just say that's not our. If the thief is caught by a hand during the process of stealing, they tend it's not our hand, even if you keep the hand in your hand. So this is the case of what they are doing, and basically. Poland became a country where there are almost no check and balance system, no free. I mean, media is just a little bit free. I mean, there are just few medias, so we don't even discuss the details of the corruption because they don't talk about that. When I was in PKP and we did the last privatizations in Poland, we published a white paper after every transaction. I mean, detailed information about the process. If I hadn't, if it was not done, of course I would be in jail right now, and I even don't have any case related to the privatization. What Law and Justice does, they made a lot of transactions like privatization. They are selling parts of Lotos company, for example, the petrol company, to the companies from the Saudi Aramco to MOL, the Hungarian company, with no information to the public. They are doing a lot of this kind of transactions with zero information to the public, transparency in zero. This is something which it's even difficult to Polish journalists or independent think tanks to get any information related to the transaction. That's why international media don't have this information as well.
If I may to add a few words, corruption can have many faces, and obviously in Poland we don't pay policemen on the streets anymore or the doctors, but when it comes to more high-profile level of corruption, it's the situation is a bit different, as we have been discussing today. And speaking of corruption, I also have a question to Mr. Krych, because we all saw that beautiful face of the Prosecutor General Ziobro on the cover page of the report, and there is a reason for this. Also in your case, if you could please elaborate a little.
Yes, there is another. Well, maybe before that. Just one remark, the same Porowski who came to visit me in October of 2017 met with two other people, and the outcome, it's an interesting observation to see the outcome. One of these guys who'd been approached by him at more or less the same time decided to be a licensed oligarch and joint venture with Orlen on a major project. Another one ran away to the US and never came back, and probably is not coming back. So, same meeting, same person, same proposal, three different outcomes. Me in jail, one guy running away to the US, the third one deciding to be cooperative. And what was your question? I'm sorry.
Mr. Ziobro.
Mr. Ziobro. That's also very relevant, because when I got released, I got a call from someone who I know for a long time, who calls me and says, that the former spokesman of a ruling party, Adam Hoffman, wants to meet with me. So we meet, that was like June 2018, we meet in the Łazienki Park, we go for a walk, and he tells me, listen, they make a mistake, they thought you are a pocket oligarch, and you are American capital, actually. Oopsie. So they made a mistake. And listen, I would organize a meeting with Minister Ziobro and his wife Patrycja. That would be a private dinner in my house, and you're going to settle the thing between yourself. So that's another meeting, that's another proposal which I rejected, but that tells you something about the way they operate.
And one more question to you, the last from me, I believe. It's about when you were released from custody and you started giving interviews, revealing quite in detail what happened to you, also regarding that corruption story. Did the prosecution service do anything in that regard?
Oh yes, of course, but not what they should have done. Meaning, they should have started the case of trying to identify the person described as a former prosecutor from Katowice, former deputy head of Agency for Internal Security and the deputy head of the Central Anti-Corruption Office. But they started the case of the case is called, a fabrication of false evidence and directing the suspicious into third parties. There is such a qualification in the Polish law or penal code, and which allows them to start such a procedure, and that procedure is still pending.
So perhaps now I would like to ask a quick question to actually Professor Balcerowicz. Not often I get a chance to do that. We have the upcoming we have the upcoming elections, so of course we need to touch on that subject. I wanted to ask, actually, what do you think should happen after the elections, assuming the Democratic side wins, to safeguard entrepreneurs from situations like that, and B, for those guests we have today and other cases we have in the report, to seek justice?
Well, fortunately, we have a very lively civil society in Poland, especially regarding rule of law. And they have open dialogue.
Including
yes,
open dialogue.
Including, okay. And from what I know, there's already some very concrete and sensitive proposal, which I am not going here to repeat. But I think we are ready. So what remains to be done only to win elections.
Let's do that.
Krzysztof, you had a question? That's true? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm having a lot of questions again. To Professor Balcerowicz, whether your foundation observe or somehow the level of corruption in Poland, and if yes, have you seen something special, any rise in the last years or not? And the question to Przemysław Krych, because I wasn't, I want to be very precise, whether the same person told you to pay him a bribe, 1.5 million, Mr. Borowski, and the same, and he was a prosecutor and he charity. Yeah? Is that correct, or I understood it wrongly? Thank you.
Me. Where I start my answer with distinction between petty corruption and normal corruption, which usually is meant to some state officials demand bribes for their private benefit, and state capture by incompetent and corrupt officials, and we have both. I am not saying that there is no petty corruption, there's a lot of petty corruption, but there's something else. And something worse, I think, the state capture and diverting or changing the system towards dictatorship. Meaning that, unfortunately, it is not finished and the elections could be won and should be won, but they're clear, and attack on the rule of law. Capture and prosecution is an attack against the fundamentals of Western civilization. The rule of law. And coming to your questions, in my foundation, which is called For All, we have been focusing, first of all, on distortions of the system, including the justice system, including the rule of law, and not only the economy, where we have also a reversal towards more state control, which affects both the economy, and we are now paying the price. The fact that we have high inflation and recession is not an accident. It is the result of previous 8 years of policies, because remember, policies, including bad policies, worked with a time lag. And this is a time lag. This is now materializing the price of previous 8 years.
Oh, please. Just to answer your question, the person's name is Krzysztof Porowski, not Borowski, and it's very easy to identify this person. He is from Sosnowiec, that's where I was in detention, and he was involved in the past into corruption scandal with a former Minister of Industry Niewiarowski, and he was also involved in scouting the judges to become agents of the secret services. That was another scandal under the, when late President Kaczynski was a Minister of Justice. It's very easy to identify this person. He was not a public prosecutor himself. When he came to see me, he represented that he was sent on behalf of someone whom he identified as former prosecutor from Katowice, former deputy head of Central not CBA, the ABW, Agency for Internal Security, and the current deputy of Central Anti-Corruption Office. It's the same person, which had these three positions during his life, professional career, and it's very easy to identify who that person is.
Okay, so are there any more questions? No, I believe not. So we are running exactly out of the 20 minutes we were given. So I would like to thank you all very much. I would like to thank our speakers. So perhaps a round of applause. And I invite you to download our report. It's available on our website, foundation.eu/report. Also, the other reports we mentioned, so a mini report on Mr. Krych, a mini report on Mr. Osiecki, they're all on our website, so please have a look. And also, those of you who are Polish speaking, tomorrow actually we'll have kind of a repetition of this event, this time on Twitter. So if you like, you can join us on Twitter Spaces of Radio Rebellion. It's an internet radio. We'll have the same array of speakers, plus actually many more. There will be Prosecutor Ewa Wrzosek. There will be a former Secret Services Chief Paweł Wojtunik, Judge Dariusz Mazur of Systemic Association, Marta Dempart from the Polish Women's Strike. So we start tomorrow at 5:30. It's going to be a 2-hour event. An interactive event. Anyone on Twitter can join. There's a link on our Twitter or the Foundation Twitter, or as I mentioned, Radio Rebellion. So please join us, those of you who are Polish speaking. So thank you once again. Bartosz, would you like to also say something as a president of the Foundation?
Just to thank you. Thank you very much. And,
thank you and thank you.
If you have any more questions, don't hesitate. You can approach us freely.
Or if you want to, or if you like to cooperate with our foundation or support our foundation, please reach out to us. Thank you again.
Prosimy od miesięcy, może to ale rozmawiamy.